Good morning again, my dear brothers and sisters. As we continue our observance of Lent, we will revisit our basic understanding of sin, the cause of our separation from God. Come, join us in the next few minutes. Let us refresh our understanding of sin that we may avoid it and get rid of it in our lives. Last episode, we mentioned that sin ruined the beautiful relationship between God and human beings. You might have asked then, what is sin? What's with it? Well, friends, sin is simply an offense or rebellion against God, His person and His commandments, and against our neighbor whom we injure in words or in deeds. Further, according to St. Augustine of Hippo, Doctor of the Church, sin is a word, deed, or desire in opposition to the eternal law of God. Now, sin is distinguished between original sin and personal or actual sin. Original sin is humanity's state of sin which resulted from the fall of our first parents. It is the state of deprivation of original holiness and justice. A sin contracted by us, not committed, a state, not an act. And this sin committed by Adam and Eve because of their disobedience to God and the deception of evil was and is transmitted to every human being that came after them. But one must note that although we inherited the sin of Adam, we do not inherit his guilt that remains personal to him. For according to Catholic teaching, it is transmitted to the descendants of Adam along with human nature, but involves no personal responsibility or personal guilt on their part. So, in the resurrected Christ, which the Apostle Paul regards as the new Adam, we were given the privilege to be cleansed from original sin through our baptism. Some contemporary opinions consider the notion of original sin as something abstract. Some theologians explain original sin as social sin or structural sin. We are born into a very sinful world, and this affects and influences us whether we like it or not. Now, from original sin, we go to personal or actual sin. Personal or actual sin is one's willful act, contrary to the will or the law of God, whether by doing evil, commission, or by refraining from doing good, omission. It can be distinguished between actual sin that destroys faith, mortal sin, and actual sin that does not destroy faith, venial sin. Mortal sin is a sin of grave or serious matter where the sinner performs the act with full knowledge and deliberate consent. This destroys charity, the grace in the heart of a Christian. It is in itself a rejection of God. If the sinner is unrepentant, it could lead to eternal separation from God, or what we call hell. Unlike mortal sin, venial sin does not cut off the sinner totally from God's grace, and there is no rejection of God. However, it still does injure our relationship to God and must be cleansed too. Mortal and venial sins carry a dual punishment. Both lead the sinner to incur guilt for the sin, yielding eternal and temporal punishments. Reconciliation is an act of God's mercy and addresses the guilt and eternal punishment, while purgatory and indulgences address the temporal punishment. Sin is an evil deed that infracts God's law and alienates the person from God and the community. Thus, our faith teaches and insists on reconciliation with God and the Church through the sacrament of reconciliation. Mga kaibigan, naway kami ay nakapaghain sa inyo ng karagdagang kaalaman tungkol sa kasalanan. Ngayong panahon ng Kwaresma, atin pong pagnilayan ito. Kung meron man tayong mga nagawang nakasakit sa Diyos at sa ating kapwa, ihingi natin ang mga ito ng kapatawaran upang tayo ay maging tunay na marapat sa pangako ng muling pagkabuhay ni Jesus. Ang paanyaya sa atin ng Ebanghelyo, kayo'y mangagsisi at magsisampalataya sa Ebanghelyo. Till our next meeting, may the good Lord bless us all.